Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being with us tonight. This is Muhammad from ArchiNet, and our guest today is Ben De Souza, the co-founder of Love That Design. Today's talk title is Design's Next Chapter and Operationalizing AI. Vikita?
Hi, everyone. I'm Vikita Shahani, the Director of Strategy and Innovation at Love That Design. It's great to have so many of you join us this evening. And as Mash mentioned, our topic today is on operationalizing AI. Our speaker, Ben, will explore how AI can shift from experimentation to a core part of design and operations powered by connected data, cultural intelligence, and predictive insight. Ben, over to you if you wouldn't mind just sharing your screen and we can get started.
There we go. And
On your camera, please.
Yes, please.
Figure out how to do that. 1 second. Here we go. Video on. Hi.
Yes, perfect.
Perfect. Hello, everybody. Good evening, everyone. Excited to be here with all of you today. And I believe, first of all, thank you, Vikita. Thank you, Mash, for organizing this. I believe there are over 100 construction professionals who are going to join us today. And I'm excited to be here with all of you. Today, we're going to be talking about something that affects every single one of your projects. How AI moves from being something of somewhat of a cool experiment to becoming something that is integrated in your daily workflow. And the reality is that this change is going to happen anyway. And today is more of a preparation for what's going to change in the next couple of months for you all. By the end of today, hopefully, you'll have a better understanding of how to transform your own practice to integrate AI in a more better manner. So to begin with, who am I and why this talk? My name is Ben, and I'm a co-founder of Love That Design and Dot Studio. And our organization has spent the last few years building out the precursor, or rather, the enabler of what exactly I'm going to be talking about with you today. We've created systems to help you prepare to integrate AI into your own organization. My company, we collect and organize data across the industry, from projects and products to the companies and people that participate in it. Our industry platform, Love That Design, connects manufacturers, designers, and projects across the region, while Dot Studio provides specification management software with a live product library and UAE and GCC localization. Why is this relevant? So we have many discussions on AI with the industry, and most of these are centered around these 4 points here. The first one is around generative AI, part specification systems that learn from your past projects to generate specs. We also have a lot of discussions around sales and pipeline intelligence and how to forecast based on proprietary data that exists within each organization. Our third topic that we talk about is regional or cultural intelligence, using visual search and product recommendations that's tuned really for the unique requirements of this region. And finally, we talk about connected intelligence, where one system's data and decision-making and learnings informs another data system across the organization. And the truth is, integrated AI always beats single-use tools and makes the entire system smarter. I'm going to be asking you a series of 4 questions throughout this discussion. And the first one's going to come across in the next slide. And these are questions that my team and I have asked design and construction firms across the region. And I want to gather your answers to contrast with the ones that we know of with the conversations that we've had to see how they compare. So the first one's going to come up on right now. And I believe, Mash, maybe if you could put up those questions. I can't see them, as you know. But what AI projects, what AI are you using on most of your live projects today? Is it the first option is visual and renders? So Midjourney, Enscape, Lumion. Do you use this on your specifications or your paperwork automation? Or this could even include your emails and your submittals. Design checks and quantities, maybe daylight or energy planning, so on and so forth. Site tracking, safety, so photo progress, drones, some of the organizations we've seen are using it in that space as well. And finally, integrated workflows connecting multiple phases. So while we're filling that out, and again, we'll collect these answers later and share them with the rest of you. I can share that what we are seeing across the region is that the majority of you are using AI for more individual or creative tasks like visualizations, or administrative tasks like documentations, or you're using ChatGPT to write your emails. And while that's great, considering most of us were introduced to AI barely a year ago, very few are really using AI for integrated workflows to connect all the different phases of the different departments. And this fragmentation is exactly what we need to address across the region. So I'm going to move on to the next slide. Again, we'll collect your poll answers as we go along, so we can, yeah.
Sorry, yes, it seems not working, so I put the questions on the chat, so
Yeah.
Everyone can open the chat and answer the questions. Sorry.
Yeah. Okay, so let me see if I can see this chat now. Okay, so I think because I'm not able to see the chat while I'm presenting, but maybe we can collect this information afterwards and go through it separately.
Yes.
My feeling is going to be that most people are going to use this from the answers that we got for more individual tasks. So the first two options really, but we'll see. So let's talk about the current reality, and we can be a little honest about where we are. The current reality is that most AEC firms, and this is architectural engineering construction firms, and I'm sure this sounds really familiar, you treat AI like we treated CAD in the 1990s, individual tools, nothing really integrated. And maybe this sounds familiar. Maybe you're using AI for clash detection in Revit, or AI for project scheduling in Primavera, and maybe AI for cost estimation in some other platform, but none of these systems are really talking to each other. And the sad story is that because they don't talk to each other, they don't learn from each other. And then there's another problem, which is the whole problem of AI sharing almost westernized results, because that's what it's been trained on. The context that most AI systems is given is not local regional data. And granted, it's good, but you still need to check and recheck every solution that it provides. The biggest systemic issue that we've seen is that each system houses its own data. Excel files maintained separately for each team, software is used by one department and not another, and files are stored only on the desktop and not shared with everyone. The result, we're building some mega projects, and we're using tomorrow's technology, but because we're using yesterday's fragmented workflow, it doesn't really work or gel very well. So another poll question, and Mash, if you can add that to the chat. This will give us an understanding of what is your biggest barrier to AI integration. And while it's different for different firms based on where they are, some organizations don't know where to start or what to prioritize. Some people find that the technical infrastructure and the data integration is really challenging. Other organizations see that there's a resistance within the organization because people don't really want to change from what they're doing. And maybe that's because we actually reward fast predictability rather than innovation in most organizations. This has come up now. I can see that it's the quizzes have come online. So this is great.
We will keep it all on while you're speaking because it's launched all the polls together.
Okay, great.
Done.
So I was talking about the final one, which is budget constraints and unclear ROI, and whether it's technical or cultural or strategic barriers. The answer we found most is that people don't know really where to start, or the technical side of data integration is really hard because Organizations don't know how to compile and organize their data so that it can be used by the AI in an effective manner. So I'm going to move on to the next slide, which is talking through the integration gap. And the integration gap exists essentially because the question has to be answered, why hasn't integration happened naturally? The technology exists, but the reason that integration does not happen is because the barriers to that integration are actually deeper and more systemic. The first barrier that exists is a technical barrier, which is the most obvious one. We've built our workflows around disconnected data systems. So your BIM model does not talk to your project management software, or your construction site data doesn't feed back to inform design decisions. So there's no structured workflow for AI to learn. And more critically, actually, there's no feedback loop. The second barrier that I'd like to discuss is this one here, the cultural barrier. And this runs a little deeper because there's huge resistance to process change. And I hinted about this earlier. And that's because our industry rewards proven methods over innovation. When a project is worth hundreds of millions of dollars, nobody wants to be the first to try something new in case they fail, and especially when some of the projects are really large. So there's the resistance to process change, and because of that, there's a limited understanding of what AI can actually do versus the hype. The other thing that exists is a genuine fear that AI is going to replace human expertise. And lastly, on the cultural front, is that there's an absence, or rather, the ease of availability of geographically relevant regional data publicly for AI systems to learn from. So that's something that maybe we need to address at a government or an institutional level, collecting and sharing that information with everyone. Another barrier is a strategic barrier, and these are actually the most damaging. Most firms don't really have a clear adoption roadmap. They just buy AI software reactively rather than build AI capability strategically. And this also happens because success metrics are really not defined. How do you measure whether AI is actually improving the outcomes or making processes just feel more high tech? Is it something that's more novel that you can talk about, but okay, my organization is now implementing AI across this project, but how do you really measure whether it's actually improving what's happening? And then, of course, there's short-term thinking, where organizations are optimizing maybe one project or one team is using it, rather than thinking about, hey, I've got a whole organization that's executing projects. So how do I build a learning capacity across the organization? The cost reality, which is here, is that if you stay in this experimental phase, it's a very measurable cost. Projects that don't learn from previous projects repeat mistakes that can be prevented. And this means that there are missed opportunities for optimization that could probably save millions. With that, maybe I'm going to move across to the third question in my polls. So what is your biggest frustration with AI projects in the region? Number one, we find that AI tools don't talk to each other. So data is usually stuck in different systems. AI advice doesn't match local or regional data or regional building methods. It works in small tests, but it's hard to use across the whole company. And this is, again, a strategic or a cultural issue, a mix of two of them. And finally, it's too expensive, and it's not clear if the return is worth it. And for those of you who've actually tried out AI, if you haven't, perhaps you have a sentiment of one of these answers. So I encourage you to respond to the poll. And what you'll see is that the technical barriers, they're pretty obvious, but we noticed an even split, actually, when we've asked organizations to answer this question, that there's an even split between the cultural and the strategic issues. It's not just a technology problem, really. It's a challenge that's a transformational challenge for the industry, as there are so many issues to overcome. And that's why discussions in forums such as these are so important for adoption and progress. Everybody knows that there's an advantage to doing it, but Without these kind of discussions and these kind of forums, it's very difficult to actually create awareness and to move towards adopting these kind of things. So I'm going to move to the next slide. And this slide is interesting because from working with companies in the region, we've noticed that there are really three pillars that are foundations of any AI implementation. And these pillars represent, I'd say, the infrastructure that separates how companies are using there are two types of companies, ones that use AI tools and the other that uses AI to transform how it works. So these pillars represent the difference between the two. The first pillar is connected project ecosystems. This means that your BIM models, your construction site data, your cost information, your building performance data, all of it's talking to each other and learning from each other. So not just data transfer from one system to another, but actually using these tools, and they all have data learning capabilities. It's just important to connect them all together. The second pillar is over here is climate and cultural intelligence. And AI that works in London, clearly it's going to fail in Riyadh if it doesn't understand things like extreme heat or sandstorms or cultural preferences for space usage and regional supply chains. So that's another pillar that has to be considered. And the final one is predictive construction frameworks. So what we've seen here is that instead of asking what went wrong after the project finished, you need to understand what challenges are this project likely to face and how do we prevent them before they occur. So this is the third pillar, and these three pillars work together because you can't really have true predictive capability without the data, and you can't have accurate predictions without cultural and climate intelligence, and you can't scale cultural intelligence without connected systems. So they're all connected to each other, and I'm going to dig into each one separately now. So this slide talks to you about various components. So where we're moving to a target state, which is out here, and pillar one is connected project ecosystem. So let me paint a picture of what a connected system looks like in practice. So right now, your Revit model contains the design intent, but it doesn't know about necessarily the last three projects using similar structural systems, perhaps, that had cost overruns because the steel price changed. In a connected ecosystem, when you're designing a new tower, let's say a new tower in Dubai, the AI knows that similar projects face concrete curing challenges during summer months, that local suppliers have lead times that vary by maybe 200% seasonally, depending on, I don't know whether there's a summer variance or people are on holiday. And then maybe even things like the building management systems in your completed projects are showing energy performance 15% better than model. So all of this information is not connected or disconnected, and it isn't theoretical. I'm sure all of you are familiar with Skansa, and Skansa as an organization is using connected systems to predict things like concrete pour schedules based on weather forecasts. They've seen reductions in delays by 15%. Turner Construction uses AI to analyze project data, historic project data, to predict which contractors or which subcontractors will face some sort of resource constraint, and it gives the heads up to the project managers to adjust schedules before these problems occur. The key insight: every project becomes smarter because it learns from every previous project, and that's really what we're trying to address with this particular pillar. So the next pillar is cultural and climate intelligence. That seven's supposed to be a and over there. This pillar addresses the critical issues that most international AI systems completely miss. Cultural and climate intelligence. The core problem really is that AI is trained on Western data sets, and it fails catastrophically in Middle Eastern conditions. It can ignore heat construction challenges, or it suggests that construction schedules, that these schedules don't necessarily account for productivity drops in 50 degrees Celsius weather, or concrete curing requirements that I've explained before that are different in desert climates. It can miss out on things like space usage requirements, or it overlooks traditional building methods that actually outperform modern alternatives. Say you're designing a villa complex. AI models don't necessarily have performance data that show how a traditional courtyard design can provide better thermal performance than many contemporary HVAC systems. So the solution really begins from collecting and organizing and sharing that data with AI systems so that we have climate responsive design optimization or cultural space requirement integration from the project start and not really as an afterthought. There's also a need for regional regulatory compliance so that's actually fed into our project systems to evaluate before submittals rather than being flagged afterwards. So this is an ideal state that we could get to. Okay, I'm going to move on to the next question. I hope these are not too many poll questions for all of you, but this is specifically on the cultural side. So which regional factor do AI tools often miss in Middle Eastern projects? So I think local materials and real supplier lead times was a concern that we saw. Passive cooling, shading, or more of the environmental understanding and understanding knowledge. Site practices, labor rules, and team constraints could be another one. Desert climate realities, high cooling demand, dust storms, corrosion. I mean, it's hard to build out here because we are essentially in the desert. So from our research, we found that this has been an even split. And this is why generic AI solutions fail in our markets. It doesn't really address any of these problems. And these aren't edge cases. They're actually core requirements that should be built into any AI models that we begin to use in the next couple of months from day one itself. So with that, we'll move on to pillar 3, which is predictive frameworks. And this really talks through a forecasting framework. And the first part is clear. It's a mindset shift. This pillar represents the most profound change, moving from crisis management to predictive problem prevention. And the shifting mindset, the first part is that there are three types of mindset shift. The first thing we need to think about is what we usually ask what went wrong, but what we need to be thinking about is what is likely to go wrong and how do we prevent it. We have to shift from doing project postmortems to optimization before we start construction. And finally, you can't treat each project in isolation and it's unique in that form. We need to build a portfolio of intelligence that encapsulates all projects that our firms do. And once this happens, we'll see predictive capabilities. So in the case of material delivery delay, AI will understand that there's a seasonal shipping pattern or regional supply capacity constraints and supply chain vulnerabilities before they impact your actual timeline. The second is with subcontractor resourcing and issue detection. You'll know weeks in advance which discipline will face labor shortages or equipment conflicts or capacity issues across your own project portfolio, especially if you're dealing with a lot of the same subcontractors across projects. And the last one is we've got scheduling optimization, where you can consider the weather in your scheduling optimization, not just checking tomorrow's forecast, but understanding how seasonal weather patterns affect different construction activities and planning accordingly. The final one is, of course, quality issue prevention. I think the key here is that the AI will be able to identify quality problems based on design decisions and material choices based on your own data because you've taught it to do that. Moving on to the next, I want to talk to you about the transformation journey and sort of present to you a more realistic timeline for integration of AI into your organization. We've had conversations with many companies, and everybody's really keen to start because everybody sees that AI moves really quickly. But the truth is, construction industry moves different from tech companies. You can't just transform a construction workflow as quickly as you can update a mobile app or a website. And we've identified 3 different stages for this activity. The first one is foundation building, and this typically takes anywhere between 6 to 12 months. Maybe some of you already have a head start here. So it's about doing an audit of your data infrastructure and then standardizing your data to get it all in order before adding any AI complexity. And this is the first thing that needs to happen. And it's really the most important step. So understanding and standardization of your data is essential so that it's ready for AI systems to learn from it. This unfortunately involves the most amount of work. So you have to digitize all your past project data. You have to convert all this knowledge from Gantt charts, meeting minutes, emails, Excel files, cost data, all of it into formats that the AI can actually learn from. The next thing that has to happen in this stage is you have to plan how integration will happen across platforms. So you have to map how all your current systems will connect. And the last and the most important part of this stage is actually the team preparation, because you have to train your team to ensure your people can work with AI enhanced workflows. So there's a skill development that's required, and many companies miss out on doing that activity because AI seems so accessible and easy to use, but at the same time, if your team is not prepared for it, these experiments really fail. Stage 2 is connected implementation, and this is can take anywhere between 12 to 18 months after the first stage is finished. So the first thing to do here is use real-time site and design data to immediately inform design decisions. You have to create some sort of a feedback loop for the AI to work with. So so using what's actually occurring on site, feeding it back to the people who are making these decisions, using the AI to collect it and capture it and then share it across. The next thing that needs to happen is that in this stage is that you need to connect your own information. So your climatic information, your regional, maybe regulatory standards data to your AI system so that it can help take these decisions. And the last part is actually deploying predictive project management tools. Many of them are very easily available now. It'll help you to stay ahead of problems rather than just reacting to them. Like I said before, this stage, while it's an important stage, it's actually the stage where we see most of these projects failing. And this is due to how complex the stage is, for sure. But from our research and experience, it's really how complete and well done stage 1 is that determines the success of this stage. Stage 1 is actually the most important, as it affects more than 80% of your chances of a successful AI implementation. So getting the data together the right way, it's pretty much like learning any task. How well you learn or implement is based on the information that you've collected or you're learning from. So if you get stage 1 right, stage 2 is hard, but it's more likely that you'll get past it. Stage 3, which is portfolio optimization, is where everything is singing together. So now all your projects are working in harmony. You're learning from the past, and your current data is helping you predict what the future looks like. And this is more successful over time with more data that you share. And what happens is that the AI starts becoming part of your competitive advantage and not just something about operational efficiency. So this is the ideal stage. And from this point on, you just go from benefit to benefit from what you're using with your AI. So the final poll, where is your firm in its AI adoption? Are you still evaluating individual AI tools? Are you piloting AI in a selected project? Are you building some sort of connected workflow? Or are you already done and AI is already integrated across your whole workflow, across your whole project portfolio? What I believe will be the answer to this is that most organizations are probably in stage 1 or 2, which means there's a huge opportunity now for a competitive advantage across early movers. So, and when this happens, the competitive advantage that you get is really what we're going to discuss across in this slide. So what changes with true AI integration? And it's really three parts that that are there: the design side, the construction management side, and the business impact of it. So on the design process side, you actually have clash detection before it happens and prevention instead of spending weeks fixing clashes discovered after the design is frozen. Potential conflicts are identified and resolved when design is happening because AI understands construction in real time. Of course, cultural requirements will get integrated from the very beginning of the project, and building performance moves from, oh, I hope it'll perform, to you're actually being able to predict how performance is going to occur. The second part is for construction management. Quality issues actually get prevented versus being discovered and fixed. Essentially, things become more proactive than reactive. Resource conflicts also, they get anticipated early on versus somebody having to react to them after they occur. And of course, schedule optimization happens rather than schedule firefighting. Instead of constantly adjusting timelines to recover from delays, you're optimizing schedules to prevent delays. So an ideal phase to be in. The business impact is pretty straightforward. What we've seen is that there's at least a 20% reduction in cost overruns. Projects get delivered faster, 25% faster in some cases. And there's higher client retention, obviously, because you're delivering your projects on time and there's a predictable success to these projects. So your clients are happy as well as your team, as your people, and of course, your bottom line. So how do you go about doing all of this stuff? And the truth is that it really begins today. So this week, this time itself, what you need to be doing is mapping your current data disconnections. So you have to trace how your information flows from your BIM models to your construction teams and back again, and how does performance happen in this flow? So where does your information get lost, or where do you need manual intervention? And literally, what you need to do is list it out on paper like a flow chart so that you understand how data flows across your organization or your project. The second thing that you need to do is identify cultural and climate factors that are missing. So things like look at your last 3 projects. What regional consideration were handled reactively rather than proactively? And finally, just list out what project problems could be predicted. When you do this, it'll actually help you prepare for a different kind of problem-solving mindset. It'll shape the AI tools that you select. It'll help you understand what metrics you need to look at to determine success. So, and that's really important because you'll be able to figure out whether something is successful for you or not. So in the next 6 months, what you need to be doing is start in a simple manner. Choose your most critical software platforms. This is usually BIM and project management. Research how they can work together or talk to each other. Most of these software have some sort of built-in connection. For example, Revit can very easily talk to Procore, AutoCAD talks to PlanGrid, and test it with one project, a small project perhaps, or a slightly larger one, depending on the size of your organization. Try to sync data between the platforms on a small project and see whether you can use that data in the AI prompts that are available in these tools. Honestly, the key takeaway from this slide is actually this word, today. There's no better time to get started. So it's really important that people get started as quickly as possible on this journey. A reality check on implementation. Of course, there's a cost associated with understanding and implementing all of this. The technical requirement can get pretty expensive. It's not just about software licenses, it's an infrastructure investment in that you have to make your team understand everything. And purchase the right kind of tools for them before you begin. There is centralized project knowledge management, so lessons learned from one project are available from all future projects as well. And another challenge that is there is that you'll have to spend money on automating your construction site data collection, whether they are drones or sensors or cameras or other IoT devices. The fourth point over here is version control systems with AI learning capabilities. So not just tracking changes, but learning why these changes happened or why they need to be made. So these tools exist. Many of you are using them in isolation, but not really experimenting with them on your projects. Mostly because these projects have time constraints and you just don't have the training or maybe the inclination to use it at this point in time. So another thing that happens when you're trying to implement any AI system is actually the cultural side of things. So while technical is always an issue, how do you get past the cultural change management? And this really, again, is a mindset shift. So the common objective is AI replaces architects. You need to be able to be able to foster this across your team, and you need to talk to them about AI doesn't replace architect. It helps the architect design better buildings faster. So you have to change that fear that AI is going to make all the decisions to the AI will actually provide you better information so that you can make the decision. Many people say it's too risky for construction, but it actually reduces project risk through better prediction. So AI doesn't really introduce risk in isolation. It makes existing risks more visible and manageable if it's deployed correctly. Then there's another thing that clients won't accept it because they don't expect AI to be doing all the work. I mean, we should be doing it ourselves. That's what they're paying us for. But at the end of the day, clients really care about results. They don't care about what tools you use. They probably don't know what tools you use. And so when you deliver projects on time, on budget, with better performance, they don't care whether you used AI or traditional methods. And the fact remains, if you're not using AI, your competition may very well will be. And the bottom line is that the infrastructure investment really pays for itself. You have reduced rework, your accuracy gets better, there's faster delivery, and it allows you to get a sustainable competitive advantage over the next 2 to 3 years. So next steps, your role in the transformation. Clearly, the transformation happens when everyone plays their role. So let's take a look at what each one of you can do. For architects and engineers, you need to become AI literate without being dependent on the AI. So I think that starts with understanding what the AI can or can't do. But at the end of the day, you have to maintain your own professional judgment and creativity. So it's very important that while there are fantastic renders or fantastic suggestions that come across from the AI, maintain your professional judgment and maintain your creative understanding of how these designs need to be implemented. The second thing for an AI engineer, for architects and engineers, is talk to the people in your firm, become an advocate for integrating project delivery across departments. So talk about workflows that connect design and construction data. And the third thing is, of course, you need to champion getting climatic or cultural intelligence from across the project, not at the end of the project, but really at the start of the project. So it's not an add-on. For construction managers, you guys are pretty much the bridge between what's designed and what actually gets built. So it's important to create feedback loops between what happens on site and what design teams understand. You have to share what works with what doesn't work, so that the information actually improves future designs. The other thing that you can do is on your sites, invest in predictive tools, predictive project management tools, and systems that help you stay ahead of the problems rather than just being reactive to everything. So if you focus on prevention rather than reacting, and you shift your mindset from, oh, I need to manage this crisis, to I'm actually thinking about risks before they occur, and I'm changing it to risk management, I think that'll be very important. For industry leaders, you need to think about this being a strategic competitive advantage. It's not just about efficiency. The truth is, firms that integrate AI meaningfully over the next 5 years, they will dominate in the next decade. Invest in the infrastructure, not just the software. Invest in the training, support cross-project learning opportunities, and don't treat each project as unique. It's very important that the information is shared across different projects. The truth here is that the construction industry, it transforms slowly, and you can see that as something negative. But one thing that's really important as a takeaway is that if you're an early mover, you're going to have a sustained competitive advantage because it changes slowly. So if you move today, you'll have a sustained competitive advantage over the years. And the question really isn't whether AI is going to transform how we design and build. It's doing it already. The question really is whether your firm will lead that transformation or you'll be forced to follow it. So with that, I'm going to end and thank you all for joining us. If you have any questions, please share them, and maybe we can get into that part of the poll.
Thank you, Ben. I think I can stop the poll for now, or
Yeah.
do you like to give
Well,
chance?
I can run through what we've got on the poll questions. So I'm gonna.
It will give us the summary, but let's give them another minute if anyone wants to answer the poll, just in case, and we can start with the questions that we have. I think we have. Well, sorry, just a second. So I have a question here. You compare today's AI adaptation to CAD in the 90s. What lessons from that era can help us accelerate adaptation today?
I think the main thing is that the awareness has to increase across the board when it comes to this particular activity. So AI in the 90s, CAD in the 90s was treated as a very isolated thing. And what happened was that organizations had one AI CAD operator, and everybody would go to that CAD operator and say, okay, you do my drawings for me. And today it's shifted across so that it's less isolated. And I think that's the same lesson that we need to learn from these kind of implementations, that AI is something that has to be a shared knowledge that's used by the entire organization. These tools cannot be used in isolation. It should be used, and that's where management and leadership, not just the management or the organization, but individuals within the organizations should advocate for these tools being used and share that these are the best practices that are happening. So I think. Yeah.
So I'm sharing the results now. You can see it, right?
Yes, I can.
So do you like to run through them first?
Yeah, sure. So in the first question we had is, what AI are you using most on live projects? And typically it's visuals and renders. So people are still not using the whole. While we have some companies, two organizations talked about integrating workflows and connecting multiple phases, which is interesting because those organizations are really going to have that competitive advantage over time. It's actually a good thing for anybody who is going to start implementing this now, because the opportunity means that they'll create a wider moat for themselves when it comes to any future execution or any future competitive advantage that they build. So that was the first question. The second question is, what is your biggest barrier to AI integration? I don't know where to start or prioritize was the first, or what to prioritize was the first choice. And the organizational resistance to change management. Yeah, so these are fantastic opportunities. So when it comes to where to start or prioritize, I think we looked at this in one of the slides, and it really is about making sure that it's not the AI stuff that you start with. It's the data stuff. You begin by looking at the intelligence that your organization has collected over time and putting it together to make sure that that data is available to the tools that are available in the future. And really, organizational resistance and change management, the only way to overcome that is by creating more awareness and having maybe workshop sessions or training across the organization. Because without spending in these spaces, it's really hard to make any sort of implementation work. The biggest frustration with AI in projects in the Middle East, AI tools don't talk to each other. Data is stuck in different systems. But the thing I feel is that, again, the reason that this happens is because people don't really try out how to make these tools talk to other tools. Or the other truth is that AI is still pretty new. I mean, it's a year and a half since most of us have been using it in this space. So very soon, and we are already seeing it all over the place. Everywhere, it's got these little stars that show the AI button. So these tools are going to talk to each other, and the data that's stuck in different systems, the only way to really get away from it all is to stop storing data in systems that don't talk to each other. Like, I know everybody uses Excel files and spreadsheets. That really has to stop, because if your data is not in a central place or a central system, whether it's a SaaS software like things that we build, or maybe CRM systems or so on and so forth, it's going to be a missed opportunity if these systems don't talk to each other. Even split across all the other frustrations. So the next question was, which regional factor do AI tools often miss? Local materials and real supplier lead times. And at least, again, it's important for data systems. So in this scenario, where the regional factor is that local materials and real supplier lead times is missing, is a great opportunity for companies like that collect this information. Companies like Love That Design and what we do, we actually collect information about what is available locally on different projects that are there, and there are magazines, there are platforms that actually have this information available. So I think it's more about awareness and making sure that the AI is aware of these models. So we've been doing some fantastic experiments in how to actually train AI sources to take a picture and break it down and say that, okay, these are the products that are available in this picture, and how do we identify local suppliers from things like this. And we're not alone in this activity. Across the world, there are many people that are doing it. It's just that we probably have an advantage being in this region. So we've been collecting this information. The second big point that came out over here is site practices, labor rules, and team constraints. And I feel like, as far as the labor rules and stuff goes, I think many of our governments are actually making these initiatives where this information is more readily available. I think it's just that the AI systems don't exist that automatically integrate. And this, I feel, is just a matter of time. So this is also something that hopefully will improve. Where is your firm in AI adoption? Still evaluating individual AI tools. So this is clear to me that organizations many of the organizations in our industry are still at that nascent early phase, which means that the time is now to really move into really implementing AI immediately, so that you gain that competitive advantage before the market moves in that direction. And I think that includes the last question on the polls, Mash.
Yes. So we'll start with the questions we have in the chat. So I will go with the first question from Loai. In the second pillar, you mentioned that at the beginning of the session, how do you propose using AI in areas such as passive cooling, shading devices, and energy design? Sorry.
Really, a lot of these tools. So first of all, of course, collecting your proprietary data, sharing it with different kinds of purpose-built AI software. And while there's a lot of it out there, I don't advocate a single tool as such. we're putting together some research, and I'm happy to share that once it's over, we're going to be presenting a paper, hopefully in November during the design week that we have over here in Dubai, and it's going to talk about really tools that can be used to do this. And these tools already have a lot of this information inbuilt into it. So I think once this research activity is over, we can get it. But the key point to take away is that these tools exist. You can research them yourself online, and you can find that it is possible to find a solution to this um, across tools. The problem really is collecting that data and sharing that data. So you have to look at your past projects, look at things that you've done. And when I say cultural and climatic data, it's more about your organization's data rather than the whole industry's data in a geographic sense. So I hope that answers that question.
Yeah. So there's a question from Fahad. In the field of architecture, there are so many AI tools emerging every day. How can we identify and choose the best programs that can really support our work?
It's very hard. It's very hard to find tools. And the real problem is these tools are evolving really quickly. Unlike um, unlike the construction industry, tech moves really quickly. And even if you look at something as basic as ChatGPT versus Claude versus Grok versus Gemini, there's so much advancement that it's really hard to say which one's the best to use for which application. While most of it becomes a marketing game because people who advertise their features in the best manner possible, those are the ones that most people pick. There are some clear winners. One that I feel is a good one to look at is, and I can really say this, is Copilot from Microsoft for construction data. So just looking at Copilot for construction, I think that's one of the tools. There are others as well. Again, something that we will release in a blog note in November, and maybe I can share this with this research activity with the members from ArchiNet so that you guys can see it as well. Yeah.
I just wrote the name there. So there is a question from Iman. Are AI-powered clash detection tools and BIM complementary? How do they work together?
Could you repeat the question, please? Sorry.
Okay, so maybe I will have to take the question from the beginning. As a student, I'm not fully clear on how AI is integrated into the AEC industry. Could you give me a concrete example, especially in the construction phase?
Okay. So what happens in the case of many systems is that these tools actually already talk to each other, right? And most of the problems exist because one, there's not enough data shared with the tool so that it can actively predict. For example, Procore, not an easily accessible tool I can imagine for a student, but this is a very specialized software that actually can look at all your construction data and predict what's going to happen in the future. So I think these kind of tools have this predictability built into it. It's hard to give an exact case study as such, but I talked about two studies. One was from Scansa, which talked about using past data to predict concrete curing schedule. So that could be something that maybe can be researched a little bit more to see how this case study works. So maybe that's one that can come in.
Okay, so there is a question and some comments from Abby. What about warranty and liability issue in your opinion? I think one of the biggest doubts towards AI in our industry is uncertainty and doubts about how they actually perform a certain process. We are not a computer scientist who build these tools, right? So let's say in a bad case scenario, a firm integrates AI in the CA phase, a big structural problem arises and was found after 19% of the completion. In the case of lawsuit, there is no currently clear legal description on this issue around AI, and I think that might be one of the biggest issues today.
Yeah, absolutely right. I mean, professional indemnity. I mean, how can you hold the AI accountable, right? So I don't even know where the
Who's
case is.
AI? Yeah, exactly.
Who is AI?
Yeah,
Exactly.
so
And the truth is that at the end of the day, the human presenting is the one that's liable. You can't
Yeah.
go with what the AI proposes all the time, because I think personally, the best way to really do this, and it's what I use. I use multiple AI systems. Granted, it takes a little bit more time, but even if you're doing something like making a presentation like such as this one, you can use multiple tools to actually um, give you feedback on what you've proposed. So I think that the issue is not using less AI; it's actually using more AI. So if you use more of these systems and compare and contrast, because at the end of the day, imagine each of these AI solutions is somebody who's working for you. So you delegate the decision, the research to them, they come back to you, and in your own professional capacity, you need to analyze and say, okay, this solution makes sense or this solution doesn't make sense. And the other thing that you could do is pit one solution against the other. And I feel like we need to use these tools in such a way that it reduces our risk. It can't take away the risk completely. The risk is really on the person who's signing on the dotted line or who's proposing the design or delivering it. And that's not going to change. I think our education is going to change to help us better make these decisions. But at the end of the day, the reason that the AI is not completing the whole design is because the human's taking a look at it and making sure
Yeah.
that it's actually sane.
Yeah. There's a question I believe you might answer part of it. For firms with disconnected data systems, what's the most practical first step toward integration?
Look at your BIM data and look at your past project data. It's really it's really that. I mean, I think before you start anything, the first thing that you do is take a piece of paper and map out how does data flow in your organization. It's different for every single company. There are similarities, of course, but you start with that basic exercise. And perhaps even before that basic exercise, it's really the intent. You need to believe that AI is something that you want to take on as a project, and you need to decide, hey, I'm going to work on this activity right now, and I'm going to start on this AI journey. It's a very fulfilling one if you get it right, and it means a lot of sleepless nights to get something like this organized and done. But once it's done, the competitive advantage is really immeasurable. Start by looking at your data flows, see how data flows from your project data from your BIM data to your performance data. And when all of that is done, then you start digitizing everything and then feeding it into the systems that are specially built to solve these problems. So you have to identify problem areas that are unique to your organization before you can pick tools to solve these problems for you. But before everything, digitize your data. If you don't do that, then what are you going to feed it? So
Yeah, I believe the first step is to consider AI integration as a project.
yeah.
So people currently using it as a side tool or something to try it out or trial, whatever. So and on three pillars, if a firm can only start with one of these three pillars, connected ecosystems, cultural climate intelligence, or predictive frameworks as you presented, which is the most urgent and why?
The connected data set. I think that the connected project ecosystems comes
Yeah.
first because it feeds everything else. And you can't predict without data. You can't collect climatic information without the data. So the first thing that needs to happen is that you need to map out your whole project ecosystem and say, okay, how am I going to connect all of this stuff together? And when that happens, then you're in a space that enables a shift. Without doing that, you can't move.
So last question, what does cultural intelligence and AI actually look like in practice beyond data and algorithms?
It's a very interesting question because culture is something that shifts
That's
from organization to organization, to region to
yes.
region, to industry, right? I think for me, it's going to be when first of all, people the cultural context within an organization that people are more or let's say less fearful of AI, and they don't worry about, okay, this AI is going to take my job. This is the first cultural shift that needs to happen. AI is my tool, my friend, and it's going to help me, but it's not going to do all my work for me. It's going to be it's going to be like a calculator. I can do the mental math and I can figure out how to multiply two large numbers together, and if I can do some paper, but I'm going to use a calculator, or it's as basic as that. That understanding of this thing is here to help, but at the same time, unlike a calculator, it's going to give you wrong answers. So I think I think that first shift is the intention shift that has to happen culturally. The second thing that has to happen in the cultural aspect is that organizations, of course, need to share their own cultural data or the data of projects that they have done with the AI, so that the renders or the project plans, all of this comes out in such a way that it considers that information. I'd be very happy to see project plans or Gantt charts that actually consider I'm sure you've all seen the auto balancing part of any of these project management systems. And what if it looked at seasonal data that's shared from, I don't know, a database of weather information from the government, saying that this is storm predictions that are going to happen in the future. And all of that gets plugged in automatically into Primavera to say, okay, balance my project plan, and it says, okay, but there's some new weather data that I've received, and this is something that I need to consider. So there are so many implications of how the culture is going to work, and I feel like that consideration is going to be essential for any sort of cultural success.
Yeah, thank you, Ben, for this talk. And I believe this is the purpose of the entire series of the AI Design Frontiers. And we will have our next talk on 20th September with Hamid Hassanzadeh. And the topic is actually the evolution of architecture, from hand drawing to computational design to AI integration, and how design technologies like CAD and AI to continue to shape architectural thinking and practice. And see you by then. Thank you, Ben.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you very
everyone.
much, everybody. All the best.
Take
Have a
care.
good evening. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.